is this extraordinary self-destruction which is going on in all of our countries. It's being led by America, but it's the same story in Australia, New Zealand, in Britain, in Canada. Basically, a desire to sort of rid ourselves of our history. It's an attempt to rid ourselves of our cultural heritage by putting everything through the remorseless spin cycle of identity and racial politics. It's an attack on our religious foundations, an attack on our philosophical foundations.
You want border security? You giving your kids piano lessons? You like Shakespeare? You believe in the SAT? You must be a racist. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about the kind of race hate you cannot mistake for anything else, the kind where people just come out and announce, I hate this race of people, and here's why I do. But on MSNBC, they're already there. Now, you probably knew about Joy Reid, the race lady, who's been fixated on race hate for years now. But MSNBC has a new host, someone called Tiffany Cross, who hosts a show called The Cross Connection. Here's a selection.
Many of us have seen the dangers when powerful white people decide they want something, they annex it. And they've never had a problem replacing the people who stand in their way.
We see American white people are going crazy. They're resorting to violence.
This is literally what conservative white folks do when they don't get their way. They turn violent.
White people deputizing themselves in some position of authority to have jurisdiction over their life when they need to mind their blanking business.
I don't think it's our responsibility to be tasked with destroying and dismantling the racial oppression that's against us. That's just saying we're more at fault than the white people who constructed this system and the white people who continue to practice institutional racism.
A majority of white people do not support policies that would unpack and unroll and reform this system of justice. This is what they want. Matt Gaetz is giving the white folks what they want.
White replacement can strangle culture. So yes, we should all be concerned about white replacement. It is, after all, a very threat to our survival here.
Is there anything worse than white people? They're violent, they're heartless, they're cruel, they're deranged, they're secretive, they're dishonest. In fact, as you just heard Tiffany Cross say, white people are a mortal danger to you and your loved ones. They threaten your life.
But the really interesting one that I focus on in this book is Western anti-Westernism. The thing we're doing to ourselves, the way we're weakening ourselves, not just in a way that harms ourselves, but in a way that makes us look weak to rivals, competitors, and even enemies around the world. You know, whilst we're doing all of this, you know, what is Russia doing? What is the Chinese Communist Party doing? There's a complete lack, not just of historical context about the West, but the world as it is today. Absolutely every hero of the West has now been torn down in exactly the same way. People that we were brought up once to revere, and rightly revere in most cases, are all put through this spin cycle which says, you know, they're guilty of having views that were racist by the standards of 2022. Like, amazing, isn't it, to think that people born in, say, the 17th century didn't have exactly the same views as you and I have today. Extraordinary.
So you have to ask yourself, what does Comcast board think of this? Comcast board is mostly white people who, according to the channel they own, decided they wanted something, then they annexed it. White people who steal because they're white people who could, quote, turn to violence when they don't get their way. White people are going crazy, endangering their communities. So you have to ask yourself, why are they putting this on the air? Why are they allowing this? This is not a policy debate. These are open attacks on people, on Americans, on the basis purely of their race. And that's just a selection. We could go on and on and on. Are they aware that this is happening? Perhaps they're not. We weren't, to be fair. But it is happening day after day after day after day. And at a certain point, you have to ask yourself, if it continues and nobody stops it, do they agree with it? Maybe they do. And just in case you think that we are taking Tiffany Cross out of context and pulling the worst quotes from a out-of-context segment to make her seem crazy and racist, here's more. Here's Tiffany Cross on MSNBC.
Look, a lot of folks in that Capitol insurrection, some of these folks were white women. And I know we're talking a lot about Oath Keepers and Proud Boys, but I do think that some of the white women who have adopted this ideology, is America ready to face the fact that some of those folks look like people they have elevated and put on a pedestal of being untouchable? What do you say about this wing of white women who have been radicalized and are enablers to this very dangerous domestic terrorism movement that we've seen increase quite rapidly?
Karl Marx is the most obvious example. Every single thinker of the European Enlightenments has been torn down in recent years, accused of racism or involvement in colonialism or saying the wrong thing about slavery, etc., except, mystifyingly, Rita, for Karl Marx. And Karl Marx, I went through all of the private and public writings of his. You know, in his letters, he's profoundly racist. He repeatedly uses the N-word, often hyphenated to the word Jew, because he's very anti-Semitic as well. He's bad on slavery, bad on colonialism, and I have yet to see any leftist or anti-Western protester try to pull down the statues of Karl Marx. Far from it. Just last year, the Chinese Communist Party paid for another statue of Karl Marx to go up in Germany. People who simply want to smuggle in to our societies now the same terrible ideology they tried before.
White women are dangerous because white people are dangerous. They are, by the nature of their DNA, potential domestic terrorists. Now, you could play the game, well, if any other group were spoken about this way, this would be shut down immediately. And of course, that's completely true. There's no other group in America you could talk about the way that Tiffany Cross and Joy Reid and other anchors in MSNBC talk about white people. But you don't even have to play that game. It doesn't matter what the color is. It's always wrong to reduce people to the color of their skin, to their melanin content, to their DNA, and it's even worse to attack them on the basis of that. And in fact, it's the basis of violence, actual violence.
You've said that there's a war on white people in the U.S. Would you say that's the case? Would you say that there is significant racism towards white people in the United States?
I'd say that white people in the United States are the only people who are told that they have hereditary sin. And that's a big one, just to start with.
Based strictly on
based on their skin color. I mean, I would find it so repugnant if, and I hope everybody would join me in feeling this, I would feel it so repugnant if there were any school of thought in America today that had any grasp on the public attention that said that black people were born into evil because of something their ancestors had done. Like they had the mark of Cain upon them. I mean, I think it would be such a vicious way to try to demoralize a group of people and to tell them that the things they would be able to achieve in their lives are much lessened because they should spend significant portions of their lives trying to atone for something they didn't do.
What we didn't see were enough voices willing to point out the deeper, festering rot that's plagued this nation since it was born. People who neither discovered nor built this land have been led to believe that America is theirs and theirs alone. Will this democracy survive? Well, a Yahoo News poll says no. But perhaps when you build a nation on stolen land with stolen labor, it was never going to be a republic we could keep. And so here we are, celebrating the birth of a nation, independence for white men.
This woman, Tiffany Cross, whose clips you've been watching, is so deranged by a racialist worldview that she believes all people of one color are oppressed by all people of another color. And to prove it, she says, even NFL players, some of the richest people in our society, some of the most celebrated, the most famous, the most privileged, even they can't escape the all-pervasive hatred of diabolical whites. Watch this.
I gotta say, Mike, the optics just look bad. To see all these black men crashing into each other with a bunch of white owners, white coaches, and the complete disregard of black bodies and black life. I mean, it just represents a larger issue.
The head of the NHL's, quote, social impact division said, quote, we have a lot of work to do. Again, how does Comcast board feel about this? Will the board undergo some kind of forced diversification? What about the NBA and the NFL? Admittedly, we're not following all of this, but as Joy Reid and Tiffany Cross tell us, that's probably because we're white and too stupid to understand.
I think for Kamala Harris, she's had like the triple problem of being a woman, and so people not being willing to respect her the way that they would respect a male vice president, of being black, which we already know that what that carries with it is the anti-blackness comes, with the package, and then also being vice president at a time that is really, really difficult.
Joy and I talk about this all the time. Madam Vice President, and you know this, Charlene, she black, okay?
Yes.
She went to Howard, she AK, and when she talks to you, it is, she sounds
She's so
like
regular.
me. She's so regular
She
and
really
approachable,
is.
and it's unfortunate that more people don't see that.
it.
And there's also just the dumbing down of the American electorate.
Nobody in the mainstream would dare to say that, or I think even think that about any group of people other than white people.
And all of a sudden, racial reductionists don't simply have the floor and the platform on cable news shows, but have apparently the unquestioning support of the biggest telecommunications company in the United States. What does that say about the country and its leadership?